All right, everybody, if you would turn in your Bibles to the book of James. Book of James. And anybody don't know it, James is the what? Half brother to Jesus. Y'all knew that, right? Man, y'all tough crowd this morning. Oh. I was trying to look up because this is going to be about what your words can do. But I was trying to look up because it was words and technically, but I remember growing up as in 2002, park ranger, a woman park ranger, female park ranger. And I was trying to see what state it was. I was trying to work the details. Sometimes these ideas pop in my head last minute, and I can't Google stuff up here because I only have my devices, and they're both recording. So, but anyway, in 2002, this female park ranger, I remember the story quite well, but it had one of the biggest forest fires in the state. And it turns out that she was married, and she had love letters from her partner, I'll say partner, the one she was cheating with. And anyway, she started burning these letters. Being a park ranger, she burned these letters in the park, and turned out to be one of the biggest forest fires in the states ever had in their history by burning these letters. But there were words inside these letters. So that's the reason I'm talking about what we were talking about today, because this is something that I personally, and if you personally haven't been in trouble because of this, you're a better person than I. But in James chapter 3, verse 1, it says, "Not many of you should presume to be teachers, my brothers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly." Now that, as a preacher, that is kind of a scary statement right there. Because that, by me being behind this pulpit, I'm putting a greater target on my back with my actions and my relationship with God, because He's going to hold me to a higher standard than He will anybody else, because I'm up here teaching His Word. And that's the reason I try to teach and preach His Word, and let you know when I tell you something, I let you know that if it's my personal opinion means how it feels to me. It means I don't want you to feel that way. I want you to take and feel it the way you feel it, and read it the way you read it. And so that way it takes me off the hook. And because a lot of preachers get up here and they say, this is what God said, God spoke to me, and all this other stuff. And I got really upset watching one preacher preach a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, but this woman had a line of people coming down to church. And this preacher called this woman out. She said, I have $1,000 plus $283 that I'm putting towards my blessing. And the preacher said, whoa, wait a minute. Apparently y'all don't understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I want $1,000 on top of $1,000 for your donations. So take that $283 and bring it back in when it's $1,000. And that to me is not the gospel I preach. And that's the reason when I see stuff like that, it really, I'm like, do these guys not read this verse right here? Do you not realize that God is holding you to a higher standard? Which I will finish up here. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. And that's because it says here, we all stumble in many ways. If anyone's never near at fault in what he says, he is a perfect man, a perfect woman, okay? Able to keep his whole body in check. Man, that'd be a nice thing to do, wouldn't it? Be able to just say the perfect things all the time, never have to say, you know what, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't mean it that way. No. Just be that perfect person right here. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal, or we can take a ship as an example, although are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder, wherever the pilot wants it to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but makes a great boast. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. There you can see the love letters. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the whole course of his life on fire, and itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and creatures of the sea are being tamed and have been tamed by man. But no man can tame the tongue. It is restless, evil, full of deadly poison. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men. We have been made in God likeness. Out of the same mouth come praises and cursing. Or praises and cursing. My brothers, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers, can a fig tree bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. Okay. What is that telling us about the little flappy thing that we have in our mouth? It tells us, like I tell people a lot of times, that's the reason God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we talk. And I get around people, and the thing about it is people don't realize sometimes, I've talked to people inside this church after church. We'd be sitting there talking, and all of a sudden they start cussing and stuff like that. Which it doesn't bother me. That's not, when somebody apologizes, I'm like, that's between you and God. As long as you don't cuss at me, whatever you say, that's between you and God. I'm not here to judge. Okay, but when you're in God's house, you really need to refrain from thinking and saying bad things. Especially, but the thing is, though, is if they're able to say it here, guess where they're able to say it at? Anywhere they go. I know, okay, Heavenly God in here, younger days, said, okay, I'm going to my grandma's house. I'm grown up now. I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm going to my mother's house, and I cuss outside of when I'm not around them. But when I go around my mom, guess what I don't do? I don't cuss. Has anybody ever done that? Yeah, that's what, we have a certain way we act around certain people. And that was one thing I had to do, because some of my buddies, they're like, man, why don't you cuss anymore? I'm like, because I can't do that and then get behind this pulpit. Because if I do, one thing I might do is slip up and cuss behind the pulpit. And I am not going to try to do that. And plus, looks good. It don't look good on a pastor when he's sitting there using foul language in front of people. So I don't do that either. So I just gave the whole thing up. And even Jennifer gets mad at me when I say words like, like hell. I can't even say hell around her without her getting mad. She's like, don't you say that. So I'm having to say heck now. Grown man, 54 years old, I had to say heck, which is fine, because I'm trying to be an example, and that's what it says. I'm held as a higher standard by my way I talk, the way I act, and everything else I have to say. And so I have to watch myself and watch. And the thing about it is sometimes we get around people, and then we let things slip. We say things that we shouldn't have said, things that we regret saying, things that hurt other people. And that's what sometimes in your mind you don't really think about it. But the thing about it is, it's like you remember I told y'all about that bottle of water. If I dump this bottle of water out, guess what's going to come out? Water, right? So if you're bad inside and turn you over, guess what's going to come outside? Bad stuff. And it's like this right here. Well, it was just the people I was hanging around with. Okay. Do you know tuna, dolphins? Well, you don't eat dolphins, but tuna and cod and all these other fish that are out in the ocean all the time, they live in the ocean. Who's ever been to the ocean before? Who's ever swam in the ocean before? Who's ever had salt water in your mouth? Tastes nasty, don't it? I didn't realize that until the first time I dove off that boat in that water and got it's nasty. Salty, nasty salt water. It's really, you can't drink it because it's so salty, right? But yet a tuna and cod and all these other fish that we eat, or some of us eat, swim in this stuff all their lives. And guess what? When they're cleaned and cooked and put on your plate, guess what you got to do? You got to put salt on it. Why? Why ain't the salt inside its skin? Why don't it absorb it? Because it don't. And that's what we should be when we're around bad people. When people are around us and using cuss words and saying bad things about other people, we should allow that to penetrate us. Like that salt doesn't penetrate that fish. God designed that fish to be in salt water its entire life, but yet guess what? It's not salty. But yet we get around bad people, and guess what we start doing? Acting just like them. You know, I have friends, you know, and they'll act a certain way until they get around a group of their friends, and guess what? I'm like, who is this person? This ain't the guy I've been hanging around with all week. But now he's acting different. And why? Because he's using this right here, and he's talking way different than he ever talked around me. You know, and sometimes people will respect me and hold my position and not cuss around me, but then as soon as they get around other people, it just flies out. And that's what I'm saying. That's the reason we should be more of God, where it's not penetrating us, and keep that in mind. Because that's the thing about it. Is in would quickly turn over to Proverbs chapter 4, please. I got 2 verses I'm going to read out of here. Proverbs chapter 4. Proverbs chapter 4. Give me an amen when you get there. All right. Chapter 4, verse 5. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words, or swear from them. Now, keep that mark. I'm fixing to read another one here in a minute. And that's what was the guy saying there? Keep my words. And that's what we got to do, is we got to keep God's word. And what words did he tell us? To obey, to listen. Not to use this little flap of skin to hurt people. And jump down to 24, still the same chapter, verse 24. It says, put away perversity from your mouth. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Far, not just a little way out. Keep it far away, far away. And we don't do that. You know, we're a generation nowadays that feel that we should be able to talk and say anything we want, and everyone has to respect it and not judge us upon it. Because the main thing this crowd nowadays is doing is like, I want to live my life like I say, and do not judge me. Do not try to change me. Do not try to tell me anything, because I don't want to hear it. And then when you start trying to talk to them and trying to be rational with them, because the thing is we can have conversations. You can disagree with somebody and have conversation. But this generation nowadays don't want that. They act like a bunch of 3-year-old kids that just want to cut up and I'm not listening. Or flop down on the ground. Remember when you go to the grocery store and you see a little kid not getting his way and he flop down on the floor and start beating his head, stomping his feet on the ground? And in my day, a stranger would pick you up by the arm and spank you. Not even know you. Not even know your mama. And you would thank them. You know that? We would thank them. And nowadays, what do? We call the cops on them and press charges on them. Why? Because they're trying to help us raise this child. And by raising this child, and the thing is these kids are so disrespectful, they don't have respect for adults. They cuss at them, they everything else with their words. And why they do, and guess what? Where do they learn this stuff from? You know? Yeah, they learn from the parents. And it's like, you know, the parents, they cuss around their kids and stuff, and then the kid slips up and says a cuss word at home. So, oh, I bet you he learned that at school. I'm going to homeschool him, and I'm going to teach him not to do that. And what you're going to do is teach him how to cuss more. You know, I'm not laughing, but it happens. I'm laughing because the story I'm going to share with you next. The story I'm sharing with you next was when a guy I used to work for. You know, every day, twice a day, we would go to his parts store. We'd go to his parts store and hang out, and just people coming in and talk and everything else. Well, this guy, me and the guy that worked behind the cash register, you know, we would talk. He was a younger kid. And we would actually bet a soda pop on how close we could get to how many words the guy said before he cussed. Because that's how bad he cussed. Sometimes we got 1, sometimes 5. And, you know, we just, yeah. And we bet a soda pop like that, not every day, but every so often. But anyway, he come in there and, like I say, curse. Not just curse, but curse word on top of curse word to make it even sound worse. Okay? And that's the thing, that's because he's been doing it so long, he has to make it bigger and better and say more, because now it's, before he could say one word and like emphasize what he was saying, you know? And, but then that wasn't enough, now he has to add more to it. See, that's how sin works. When you do sin, you got to keep doubling up on it to make it bigger and better. You know, kind of like drug addicts. You see, drug addicts, they start off with a little bit here, a little bit there, and next thing you know, it's consumed their whole lives. Alcoholics, same way. You know, people with pornography, people with eating addiction, all these different things. They start off small, but they keep getting bigger and bigger. Well, the somewhat funny story was the guy came in there and said, you know, I'm probably the only person in Quanah that pays full price for my kid over at the daycare, because they go by your budget, you know, how much money you make. And he said, my kid says one M-F word, and he gets suspended for 3 days. And the fact is that, and it's like, and it didn't bother him. And it did not bother him. And that's not the funny part of it. That's the sad part of it. Because you have like a 3-4-year-old kid saying this. And it don't offend you. I mean, wouldn't that offend you? If one of your kids said that, wouldn't you go, whoa, wait a minute now. Where did you hear that from? Because we don't say things like that. We do not say things like that in my house or anywhere else. No. Have you ever had your mouth washed out with soap? Yeah. We're talking about bad. Yeah. My mom would, for lying and cussing, you got your mouth washed out for it. And so guess what I try not to do around my mom? Cuss and lie. Or get caught lying. But the thing is, well, you know what I'm saying. We all try, when we're kids, we're going to lie, but we try not to get caught. Because then that, you know, the better liar we are, the better we get at it. But the sorrier than that, see, I was a horrible liar because I forget the truth. My son's the same way. My son will tell you a lie, then 30 seconds later tell you the truth in the same sentence. It's like, really? Why'd you even try? Why'd you even try to lie to me? Tell me the truth. Start with the truth first. You know, and then when sometimes with this mouth, we say things that we really didn't mean when we're mad. I remember my mom, because I got a spanking. I mean, my mom would hit us with a belt. She hit us with all kinds of stuff. And I remember my mom tore me up one time. And I can't remember what it was, but I said this quite often. I'd go into bed, crying, and I'd be like, Lord, take her, kill my mama. Anybody ever said something like that? No, I'm the only one. I'm the only psycho here. Oh, then I'd fall asleep, cry myself to sleep, I'd wake up, and I'd start crying again. God, please don't take my mom. I'm sorry, God. Aren't we glad that God don't answer prayers like that? We done wiped out half her family, you know? But that's the thing, is that, and it was at the moment, the heat of the moment, that we say things like that. And I'm still working on myself, okay? Because that's the thing, we have to work on ourselves repeatedly. Because we're going to fall short of the grace of God. That's the reason Jesus came down and died for us, because he knew that we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes all the time. And that's the reason why right here, in this thing that you use, you can use it all the time to make mistakes with. But the thing about it is if you ever try to lie, don't lie. You know, it's like me, I just gave up lying in general. I just gave it up because I want to tell the truth, because the truth is so much easier to remember. It's so much easier to remember. Because a lie, you got to remember the lie, and you got to remember all the details of the lie and everything else. And if you're like me, you don't remember very well, so you forget stuff. And then when you forget stuff, the lie starts getting falling apart because they're like, wait a minute, they start picking this and picking that. And then you're like, okay, I lied. Okay? But that's the thing about it, is being truthful. Truthful. You know, and just telling people how you honestly feel. And that's one thing I wish people would do in this world too, is when you see somebody and you ask them, how are you doing? Not, you know, I mean, if you're at a grocery store or something, yeah, just make it quick. But like if we're here in church or you go visit somebody and somebody tells you, hey, how are you doing? They're really asking you, how are you doing? You know, my wife, you know, she get on to me all the time because I'd be in the grocery store and people would say, hey, how you doing? And I may say, I'm talking to them about hemorrhoids and everything else. And like, oh, she got, honey, they didn't want to hear all that. They're just there to buy bread and go home. But when people have emotional, like right now, you know, emotionally, I have some stuff I'm going through, you know. But luckily, I have people in my life that I can talk to. And people that have these right here to listen. But be careful sometimes of the stuff the people you confide into, because sometimes people will turn around and twist that stuff and use it against you. So make sure you have trust in that person. And when you find somebody new, start telling just tidbits of your life. So that way, if you get it come back to you, then you know I can't trust this person. But if you find somebody that you can really confide in, that you can tell them some deep, dark secret inside your life. And that way, you'll know that you can confide in them, because we all need to confide in somebody. You know, that's the reason God made us as a community, so we can talk and share stories and listen and comfort one another. You know, and it's kind of, now let me see, I'm going to finish up here, it's almost 12. Finally got the clock set right. It was like 5-7 minutes behind. Got 2 more verses I'm going to read, and then we'll close up. If you would, turn to Ephesians chapter 4. This is one I try to tell people all the time. And if you ever get to the point where you slow it, like me, slow thumping around the Bible, just write it down and read it later. Ephesians 4, verse 29. It says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, whom we are sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, slander, along with every form of malice. Did I touch any bases there with that? Did anybody have any of that? Does anybody have any bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, slander, along with every form of malice? I have a couple of those on myself. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ, God, forgave you. And with the last one, I'm going to turn to Matthew chapter 12. Yeah, chapter 12. I'll finish up here. Because that's what triggers the stuff that comes out of your mouth, is bitterness, anger, slander, whatever. And slander is a really bad thing, because that's one where we put our opinions and stuff and what we heard on people. And like kids in school. You know, they see somebody new, they want to talk to them, they go talk to them, and know, and I know like my days in school, you know, I don't talk to him, that kid picks his nose, you know. It's little things we judge kids on, but as adults now, we see somebody and instead of saying, man, that's a good guy right there, but we don't say that. A lot of people are like, well, he acts like a good guy, but this is what I know about him, this is what he's done, stuff like that. We already tell him, fill him in on the bad stuff. And that's stuff that we need to shut it up and let them make their own judgment on this person, you know? Unless you really know that this person might be one that tries to manipulate them. But in Matthew 12, verse 33, it says, make a tree good and its fruits will be good, or make a tree bad and its fruit will be bad. For a tree recognized by its fruit. You board of vipers, how can you in your evil say anything good? For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him. That's what I was talking about, telling them, help build them up. And the evil man brings out the evil things stored up in him. But I tell you that men will have to give account. Okay, listen to that now. But I tell you that men and women will have to give account on the day of judgment for every careless word they have spoken, for by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned. That says God is going to judge us for every word that we said. Not my words, his words. I'm just the mailman. I'm just delivering you what he said, the message. And that's what he said. That's the reason it worries me about things I say. So now, you know, I try my best. I still mess up. But I'm going to try to work on it and do the best I can. And just try to tell people, this is what I know about this person, the good parts. The good parts. You know, let them decide on other things, you know. Because we're not a judge. We try to be. We try to put that judge seat on all the time and say, oh, and that's not our place. Our place is to just keep this thing shut and let God work through us in our actions and let us try to build people up. Because like children growing up, you want to be encouraging to them. You know, you want to help them. But, you know, it's like I tell people all the time. I stole this from Dr. Phil, by the way. Dr. Phil says, be a parent first. Because they only have one dad, one mom in their life, their entire life. They have a lot of friends throughout their life. They only have one mom and one dad. So be that dad, be that mom, and love that child, but love that child and raise that child in a godly way so that child can teach his kids, her friends, her family to be a loving good child of God as well. And we do all that through this right here. And not just that, I forewarn you too. God's not just going to hold your words. He's going to hold what you put on your social media, when you try to rip people down or say they're dumb or stupid or whatever.